Check me out.
Yeah. Oh, hey. Hey there, podcast listening person. Really appreciate you tuning into this. Very excited to have you here. I don't even know where I got that podcast listening people thing from. I always want to start off with something that sounds cool. I do a lot of LinkedIn videos. I'm like, LinkedIn learners. Kind of corny. Anyways, what are you up to, huh? Are you in the gym? Are you driving? What you listening to this on? Wherever you're tuning in, don't forget, please do us a small favor. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review, and wherever you see us on social media, give us a shout too. We love to hear from you guys. We love the feedback, and we love interacting with you. It's super helpful and a lot of fun. Today's guest, I am very excited to bring this dude's information to your ear holes today. It is all about mentality, baby. All about mentality today. My friend Tyler Johnson is on the podcast. He is a former NCAA football captain and sports business professional in MLB and the NBA. He is a creator of Elevate Educate Rejuvenate, an athlete-driven endeavor with the mission to elevate positive mindsets, educate student athletes, and rejuvenate routines for reaching the next best version of themselves. Man, I can't read today. Utilizing research-based methods and tools, Tyler helps busy student athletes, coaches, and professionals create systems that align with their values, visions, and goals to achieve more. This podcast was a lot of fun, very inspiring, and I love the fact that Tyler is impacting young generation, the next generation of business leaders and entrepreneurs and professional athletes. And again, it all starts with mindset. Mindset is absolutely everything. Before we get there, real quick, if you're interested in partnering up with us in one way or another, sponsoring the show, don't hesitate to reach out. Send us an email. Matter of fact, send us an email, milehighmentors@gmail.com, or we use Instagram a lot, use Facebook here and there, use our LinkedIn page and all that good stuff quite a bit as well. If you want to message us on social, Mile High Mentors and milehighmentors@gmail.com is how you can reach us. A lot of different ways we collaborate with local businesses and would love to work with you too. All right, guys, without further ado, give it up for my friend Tyler Johnson. Please welcome him to the Mile High Mentors podcast. Appreciate you joining me on a Sunday. I know it's usually relaxation day for most, but I feel people like you and I are going after it on these days, right?
That's right. No, always something to do each day to accomplish something or move something forward. So I don't know if you need days off, but not as often as most people think.
I love the positivity hat, man. Where'd you get that from?
Amazon. Just search positivity hat, and it's funny you say that because there's this sweet little old lady outside my son's school that I wear this hat. She's like, "Where did you get that hat?" And I was like, "Amazon." She's like, "I'm gonna have to get one." And I really want to just buy her one because I'm not sure if she's ever been on Amazon. She loves this hat, so
probably not so much. Yeah, unbranded. Getting unbranded product is awesome from Amazon because you should just buy a bunch of those hats, hand them out to the students that you're going and talking to.
I know. The flip side was it was one of the more expensive hats I've bought, I think, in life. It's nice. It fits well. It's good, but
Yeah. My favorite shirt is same story. I have a shirt that says "Billionaire in the Making," and it's just unbranded, but it was the most expensive shirt I've bought from Amazon. It's like a shirt you don't wear every day.
Yeah.
Anyways, really appreciate you doing this, man. As a way to get started, share a little bit about your favorite thing about Colorado, since this is the Mile High Mentors podcast.
Yeah. My favorite thing, I guess there's a lot, but I think, what really drew me out here. I had some family that lived out here when I was young, so I got a taste for the mountains when I was a youngster and pretty frequently. And
hey, pause real quick on that. I need to switch. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is screwed up here. Give me one second. Okay. As you were, sir. Technology.
All right. So yeah, I guess my favorite thing about Colorado is I guess it's twofold. I think the outdoors, is, I guess the obvious one, the low-hanging fruit. But I had family that lived out here when I was young and loved exploring in the mountains and skiing, and also just the lifestyle. I think that some of the more outdoors and the weather brings of just being more active, and whether it's hiking, snowshoeing, skiing, whatever people fancy, there's tons of stuff to do here. And I think in combination with that, the great people to go do those things with. And I think one of the things I noticed when you go skiing and you go hiking is people don't have their phones out all the time. And it's a different way to also, I think, not just experience nature, but a lot of those avenues when you're out there and there's no Wi-Fi, no cell service, find a deeper connection and really be able to develop relationships too in those unique environments.
Right. In the noisy world that we live in, it's like I've just realized how much more powerful. It's so easy as entrepreneurs to get into the grind and like you just want to sit in front of your computer all day and get stuff done. But like stepping away, getting in nature, getting away from Wi-Fi and all that good stuff. That's what I think is part of what makes Colorado entrepreneurs, unique, is we have the ability to do like all those different things that get ourselves out of the day to day.
Most definitely. I kind of geek out on mindset and stuff. And, just one of the things that is great for the brain to create new neurons and new pathways is to go on a hike and not know what's around the corner, to go down a ski hill and not know what's at the bottom. And just navigating those little uncertainties of life creates those neural pathways that eventually will help you create greater things and conquer things that are maybe more risk averse. But just finding those little things in the outdoors, just going around a corner of the unknown is a good way for unlocking new parts of the brain.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. So give us a little bit about your background. Where are you from originally?
Sure. I was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Both my
Southern
parents.
boy.
Yeah. So I was
and you ended up as a fit dude too. No no fried foods, hush puppy.
The good part, my mom and pops were both from Iowa, Midwestern folk, but my mom was a home ec teacher. So we lived in Louisiana for 10 years. Me and my sister were born there. The good part was she learned how to conquer all those great dishes that you love in the South. So those are still some family traditions. But when I was 6, moved back to Iowa, had a Southern accent. Kids made fun of that, which kind of caused me as a kid to recuse and not talk. And I was kind of labeled as the dumb Southerner just because I had an accent and had to navigate, school with those challenges and making friends. And for me, sports was one of those ways that I was able to develop those friendships, whether it was at recess and other things you get going on as a kid. And then grew up there in Des Moines, Iowa. Went to high school there. With the sports, I became an all-state athlete in track and football, and was blessed to have an opportunity to go play collegiately at the University of Northern Iowa, which was awesome. My second year in, I had a fracture in my third lumbar, my vertebrae. And that was a big eye-opener for me, just to put sports in perspective in life, and what's my purpose beyond a football field, what am I doing academically, and it forced me to ask some tough questions. And I was fortunate enough to come back from that and be a captain of our team and play in some national semifinals and have a great career. But that was one of the junctures that altered how I thought how sports can help people when those sports playing days end.
So your passion for sports was developed at a very early age. Besides your parents, were there other mentors or people you looked up to like really early on that helped guide you down that path?
Yeah, I think I was being mile high mentors. I think it's something I talk with student athletes with all the time. And I think when I was really young, I looked outside my world for role models. I love Bo Jackson. It was the first book I ever read was Bo Knows Bo.
What is that?
It was Bo Jackson's biography.
Oh, okay.
And it had a bunch of cuss words in it. And so my mom was really hesitant to let me read it because my star athlete had all these cuss words in his biography.
Wait, how old were you when you started consuming this?
I was I want to say about 8 years old. And
Wow.
I think the reason my mom let me read that book was kind of going back to that accent thing. I didn't like to read aloud in class because people made fun of that. And so that caused me not to want to read. And all of a sudden there was something.
But the girls love the Southern accent. Why would...
Not when you're 6. So, I think it was.
That's when they still tease you and make fun of you, I guess.
Yeah. And so I think it was the fact that I wanted to read this book that, it was eye-opening on a lot of perspectives, but it was those sports things. And then as I got older, and I tell kids all the time, you've got to find people that you can connect with in person, people that can coach. And one of the acronyms used with kids and stuff sometimes is WAG. Watch people that are doing great things and then ask them how they got there. And then if you can, get coached by them. What can you learn?
Wait, WAG, watch people that are doing, is that what
watch? Yeah, watch. See people that are doing what you want to do. See people that have maybe a skill set you don't. And if you can, why you want them to hopefully be in your circle and in person is ask them, how did they accomplish those? How did they develop those skill sets? And get coached. If they don't have the time to coach you up on that, we have a lot of other avenues through technology or other people to go get coached up on that. And when you kind of, have that perspective of people, if you can watch, ask, and get coached, that's going to help you select, I think, mentors that can help you have a better impact because they can teach you and they can give you feedback. So as I got older, I had some great coaches. My sophomore football coach was really the first coach that taught me that, I could use my brain to outperform things, and really that, between your ears was the most important muscle or whatever you want to call it, as you grow and develop. So
yeah, your
really,
eyebrows, they're pretty good. If you can learn to work your eyebrows. Sorry, guys. I'm feeling a little facetious today.
Yeah, but it was that coach that really taught me that, how powerful our thoughts really are and how they can drive us.
Well, it's amazing to me that you started studying mindset that early on. I think the vast majority of people discover that later in their life, in their career, in their mid to late 30s is what I hear from most people is like, that's when the light switched on and realized I needed self-development. So I think that the athletics probably had something to do with it. And sounds like you had a really great circle of people between your parents and also coaches.
Sure. I think so. You say, I had the thoughts and thinking about mindset early, but, really developing the skills wasn't there in high school. And I think it was really some of the experiences in college after my injury that really helped develop the skill sets, but also put you in spots in the NCAA level where you got a football team of 100 guys, you got all these relationships to manage.
Right.
And really, I think that everyone came from different backgrounds. And so being able to, one, do it in a different ecosystem than you were raised in or in high school. Mindset's always been a fascination, and it's one of those things I don't think you ever really master.
Yeah, I heard, you're going to love this. I heard the coolest thing the other day. It's like mindset, positivity. It's effective, but it's effective like bathing is effective, right? You can't just bathe once a month and, you're not going to smell like garbage.
Yeah.
You got to consistently go after it. So like how, like in the phase that you are in your life, how are you continuing to like refine and focus in the mindset side of things?
Yeah, I think like you said, it has to be put into practice. And I think when you have a practice of maybe it's a gratitude journal or, a wake up and you tell yourself a mantra or I am statements or whatever it is, but cultivating that confidence and belief generates that positivity. I think I'm big on gratitude because I think it gives perspective and it also wires our mind to notice more positive things. So on the technical side, I think one thing I've done over the years is in your social feeds, if something is negative or invokes negative thoughts, if you're going to spend time on that, eliminate those. How do you not get those to show up in your feed so that, when I go on Facebook or Twitter, it's full of positive people sharing positive things. And you have to shape that either whether it's in the digital world or in your real world. But I think a daily practice, like you said, is sometimes, especially when I work with younger athletes, they think these mantras and self-talk is a little wishy-washy and silly. But when you talk and break it down to high performers, high athletes, entrepreneurs, they're doing those things.
And even down to a science level, like you said earlier, like rewiring your brain. It's not even so much about like mindset is like this fluffy woo-woo thing. It's like there's physical aspects to mindset.
Yeah, I think, from whether it's our military spends lots of money and they do waste some, but one of the areas they've dove a lot of money into is meditation. And
really
seeing that with their elite squads and Navy SEALs and those high pressure situations, you need the right decision with your squad, or if you're in the face of war, whatever it might be. But they've seen the brain change, gray matter get bigger. And so we know that from when you spend purposeful and intent time, whether it's meditation or being outdoors more to light up those other neurological pathways, we know that you can change your brain. And neuroplasticity shows us. And so many times I think young entrepreneurs, kids, athletes, we all get stuck with things that lead us to a fixed mindset. And really that growth mindset needs to be fueled. And I read recently that people with a fixed mindset are 5 times less likely to go and try something. And, if you're going to be successful, you got to step out of comfort zones, and fostering a growth mindset in yourself is one of the best things you can do. Just like bathe yourself in that positivity, however you can find it each day, and, try to eliminate the negative things. And then the third, really, we can't eliminate all negativity, but create systems that when negative instances happen, you have a go-to. And I see coaches I work with all the time. It's like, you're going to get that crappy call. When it's coming. It's happened before. What are you going to do? And if you don't have a plan for when bad things happen, you're going to be subject to your emotional potluck. What is the whim of that day? And usually that's going to go to some default emotional state that is going to draw you away from what you're really aiming to do in the more disciplined choice you should hopefully make.
And you work mostly with younger athletes, right?
Yeah, high school and college student athletes. So a lot from 16 to 22. And then I do some work with a nonprofit where we work with some youth, and then a lot of high school coaches, and some college coaches as well, on just developing.
Which is such a key, like such an important age to have someone like you leaving that impression upon somebody, walk us through like what led you through your kind of career progression into what it is that you do now full time.
Sure. I think, I know when we had talked before, it's Steve Jobs quote is, it's hard to connect the dots looking forward. But looking back, I think really there was, 3 instances that really drove life experience, I should say, that got me into what I do. And then those life experiences paralleled work experiences that provided some resources, knowledge, and skill sets to kind of give me the aptitude and ability to go out and impact others the way I do. But the first one was, like I said, my mindset, I was fascinated by it and wanted to be a good athlete in high school, but didn't have great control over it. And it's a story I tell a lot when I work with kids, just to give some humility in that I didn't master these things as a teenager. And I was a great running back in my state and leading the state in rushing, and I got ejected out of my high school homecoming game. And it was on the news that night. I had to sit out the next game. D1 football schools that were sending me letters and calling stopped. And I was, got second team all conference, even though I was first team all state, just because that's what it was the identity that moment created. And that was a big challenge for me. And, I joked that Colorado State was one of the only D1 schools that still recruited me, but that's because it was 1999 and they didn't get the story via the internet. So it was really something a moment that I lost control, that I had full control over, and I was a captain and supposed to be a leader. And in a big moment, I wasn't able to perform. I wasn't able to keep it together. And like I said, I was blessed to go on to college sports and have opportunities there. The back injury, overcoming that, and then having sports taken away from me was taken away from me a game in high school. But then when you miss half a season and you're not around your buddies and those guys that lift you up every day and those coaches that are such great influences on you, I had to really rebuild my body and my mind from that point. And it was another step. And then beyond that, I had a fun football career. I got a degree in marketing and a minor in economics, and I took that into the sports world. And like I said, I learned from my business degree that I didn't want to work with a lot of businesses, and I was enamored with how sports operated at this high level in the pro sports. And I spent 5 years with the Chicago White Sox, and kind of in my fifth year there, I was.
This was on the marketing side, like on the business side.
Yeah, I was in their marketing sales department, doing projects and ticket development things with them, and it was a great experience being around pro athletes in those environments and going to a ballpark every day for work. But some of those things that we see in our college teams that fulfill us, that I mentioned, and those coaches we see every day, and the camaraderie you develop, don't exist sometimes in the professional world. And I found myself at 27, 28 battling a little depression. And it was kind of, went to a therapist, which, when Major League Baseball players get fined, all that money goes to help fund some of those things. A lot of times it's dealt with divorce and alcoholism and drug abuse, but it's also a program, the Baseball Assistance Recovery Program, that just helps any employee that's with professional baseball through any troubles. And being a tough guy athlete my whole life, when someone said, "Hey, go see a therapist," I kind of balked and laughed and was like, "That's not what we do. We don't talk about it."
As do most people, I would believe.
Right. And so, I swallowed a big humility pill and went and talked to someone about what I was feeling. And what I really uncovered in not too many sessions was, I got away from the things that made me a great athlete, that made me so confident, whether it was some physical fitness and daily regimen and having more routines, those things that.
So hold on, pause on that for a minute.
Yeah.
When you're facing depression, it was more the case that you had kind of fell out of your practice of consuming positivity, doing daily meditation or writing, and you were also like not really in a position of doing what you had actually had a passion for.
Yeah, I just found myself as just doing a lot of things on that default mode and really letting circumstances and the environment shape how I felt about myself, shape how I felt about others, instead of leading inward, outward, and really being able to, for me, be that confidence that I had growing up as an athlete and a captain and a leader, and being on some of those stages that all of a sudden I felt like this weak, lonely person. And in connecting those dots, I got away from a lot of the just daily habits that made me successful as I was younger. And through a recommitment to those things, I moved to Colorado, worked for the Denver Nuggets here, just needing to change of scenery. Loved that change of scenery. The Nuggets was a great experience. Met my wife through a coworker there. She's a local.
Now, how did you? Well, hold on. Let me take a step back here, because I'm super fascinated by the fact that you had really faced challenging times that were depression. That resonates very well with me, and I think a lot of people listening to this may be in that dip, right? Yeah. And something that is interesting is nothing is ever really static. Even the most positive people in the world, the most successful people in the world, things are always, up and down, going like this. And I think it's easy for a lot of people to give in when they get that dip, get depression. I've talked about this before. I've personally gone through, suicide, cutting myself, massive amounts of depression. Part of it was actually health and diet, which was really screwing me up early on. But I think going through that downturn really allows me to better empathize with other people. So I think having people like you who had also experienced that, and when someone comes to you and they're in a bad mindset, you're able to understand what it's like to be in that place, right?
Yeah, I think it at least gave me a perspective that you never know what other people are going through. Because I think as I first talked about it with friends, and it was really a good friend that said, yo, you ain't yourself, homie. And I was like, yes, I am. Yes, I am.
It's always your good friends. They'll be brutally honest with you.
And that's what, pushed me to rethink. And it gave me the perspective that you never know what other people are going through. But if you listen, you can get that understanding to help them. But just like you said, I think the key word is empathy. And one, not just empathy for others, but to have empathy for others, you have to have some for yourself. Same with kindness, all those things that if you don't have them, your cup isn't overflowing and you can't share it. And
it's so easy to lose sight of those things if you're not like over that curve of, practice. Like, I think people kind of hate people who are so positive all the time when they're so negative. And I completely understand it. It's like, oh, this like positivity mindset crap. It's so annoying, but it's everything. Like everything stems from it.
The best, like what's the other choice? Like, you're going to be negative all the time. Like you have to choose your attitude. And, while that's not going to, I'm kind of moving away from, I guess, some of the mental struggles. It's not just attitude. There's a lot of layers to each and every person's experiences there. But, when you have the choice between something positive and negative, we've got to start making that positive choice. And I think the hardest ones are the ones in our own mind. And I I do some work for author John Gordon, do some video work and stuff.
Sorry, I know I'm screwing around over here. My setup's like all kind of like quirky over here. I'm trying to, Tyler's doing awesome carrying the ball, but for you, those of you guys that are listening, I'm like over here fudging around with the mic and everything like that. So thanks for hanging in there, brother. You're doing awesome.
I got the easy part to just talk. You're like, the man in the control.
Yeah. Well, it's good. I've had
I got empathy for you.
What's that?
I got empathy for you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I've had so many guests on. It's like whenever I got to divert attention just to kind of keep things moving forward, especially when we're in the studio, it's like I got to keep pulling things, but you're an expert in your space, so you could just talk on this for hours and hours, I'm sure. All right, man, go ahead. You're on a roll there.
Yeah, I know I lost a little track, but I think what I was saying with author John Gordon, I have the privilege. He writes some great books, and I do some video work for him. And he tells a story about this guy that I think he was 59 years old, and he's one of the only guys that had done back-to-back Ironman triathlons. So you do a full Ironman, 24 hours later, you do another full one. And this guy was 59 years old and, phenomenal shape, doctor, great career. Done a lot of amazing things. And they're like, he asked him, how do you do that? Just how do you put yourself through that? And he told him, and I think it's one of the most powerful things that I try to resonate with athletes and even remind myself of, is the guy said, when I'm out there alone and your body's suffering and you're pushing yourself, he's like, you can't listen to yourself. You have to talk to yourself. And it was, he went on to say, this is how I talk to myself, and he had mantras and he had scripture and other things that he just recited and talked to himself. And I think it's such a big thing is that voice in our head we all have is how do we shut that down? Because a lot of time it's telling us false stuff. It's telling us lies about ourselves that we know aren't true.
It's completely a survival mechanism, right?
Totally. And that's, when you dive into kind of the brain, you've got kind of that fight or flight mechanism. And, when you get into pressure situations, and just like I was talking with the military or whatever, you to be positive or negative or to make this choice, your brain has usually maximum a quarter of a second. Something happens, it evokes an emotion, and you've got a quarter of a second to how you're going to react to that emotion that's now inside you. Is it going to be and break down, or is it going to be a response with discipline? And that's really hard. And everything is easier said than done. And really, when you think about it, everything is easier said than done in life, right?
Absolutely.
So being able to have, I think, for people to develop tools and develop.
I'm going to go to the gym in the morning. I swear I'm going to do it. Right.
Right. And I think, how do you take that from statement to consistency, right?
Yeah.
Going to the gym.
Consistency, right? Because that is the most important thing over perfection.
Big time. And I think a lot of times when I go in and work with groups or work with athletes, an audience, it's like we're talking about concepts. And it's like, okay, how are you going to take this concept to get it concrete in your life? And part of it is research is out there, writing it down, doing what you're saying you're going to do, create that plan and that path. But if we don't create plans and paths, then we're going to go back to default. And so if we talk about trying to get consistent, it's putting that plan together. And when you can put that plan together, you're seeing it for the first time. And
see, but that's my quarrel with a lot of mindset coaches and mindset people is, jot it down, put it in a plan, execute on it. And if you haven't read this book, I recently read "Can't Hurt Me" by David Goggins. Have you read that yet?
No, I love David Goggins.
Dude, you would love it. Do the audio version though, because lots of extra content and just hearing him. He's a bad dude.
Yeah.
He's a bad dude. But what he said really resonated. It's like motivation is crap, right?
Yeah.
In a way that it's easy to get motivated, but when when you say go write it down, go do this, like how do you stay motivated? How do you consistently pursue that?
And you're not like I know Goggins talks about like motivation runs out, inspiration falls flat. You're gonna wake up whether you're physically or emotionally drained, but are you gonna stick to that plan? And I think
it's more about what you're doing when you're not motivated, which I'm fascinated in. How can you get people to like do that stuff when they're not motivated? Yeah,
and I think when you have something that's a plan or something that's consistent to fall back on, and like I have days I keep track of, workouts and meditation and gratitude and things like that. And, somebody's like, oh, I don't feel like going through my routine, like, is my routine really going to help me today?
Mm-hmm.
And you question yourself that, but because I have, my system to keep me accountable, it helps. And I think accountability is the big part because motivation, inspiration, they're going to fall flat some days. But can you hold yourself accountable that day? Next layer, who besides yourself is going to hold you accountable? Most people's worlds or their wife or their boss, no one. So you've got to develop that accountability and realize that if you're going to wait for the perfect motivation, the perfect inspiration to start whatever you're doing, you're going to be waiting for a while, man. And I think there's never a perfect time to do things, but there's always a perfect time to grow and learn. And so I think I feel with you too. It's like, oh, if you write it down, is it going to make the difference? No, it's a step. And I tell people like, you build habits around your habits. Like you use the gym. I was talking to my dad about this. I said something about like the pre-energy drink I drink, and it's like one of those things. It's like now if like I shake that energy drink up in the water bottle, I got to go work out. Like it's a trigger, what's your trigger is, my gym bag is usually packed. If I'm going to go to the gym at 5:30 in the morning, it's packed and sitting by the door so that I don't have to think about it. I've already preloaded some decision making or put triggers in place that I'm going to have to encounter in the morning that are going to send my ass to the gym. And so I think sometimes when it's not just about writing it down, it's about creating that habit. Because then after I work out, I'm going to log how many miles I run, or, did I do soft tissue stuff that day? Whatever it is, and it'll hold you accountable to that plan. But if you're just going to ride motivation, it's never going to be as consistent as creating discipline.
Mm-hmm. It's all in the micro, super duper micro steps. Like
I feel like that from you, like, like it's Sunday, march something forward. We're going to record a podcast.
Dude, I did not, when I woke up this morning, I was like, I'm going to cancel these. Like, I don't feel like doing this today. And then it's like, think of the end result, right? I'm like thinking of our conversation. I'm like, think if I don't do this interview with Tyler and I don't get that information out to people, and it's like, it's just a baby step. It's like, just show up. You know what?
Yeah.
Just show up.
I think too, one of the things I had the thought of when we were getting on too, and we talked about, we touched on like some of the confidence stuff, and building that up. don't ever want to get lost is with leaders and entrepreneurs and great people is we need that belief and our confidence in ourselves. But one of the other great things to rely on is if yours is low, share your belief in other people, your teammates, your parents, your wife, your spouse. When you start to share, hey, we can do this. You're doing great work. We can do more. We can push each other. And you start to talk that language, it's going to reverberate back to your own belief. But when you share your belief in other people, it's just like trust. More people, ironically, are going to start to believe in you. And sometimes that is what kickstarts some of that cycle is we need to not just be so observant of ourselves, but what are the people doing around us to support us? Encourage that belief. Encourage the great things they're doing around you. And you'll start to feel that too. And eventually, I think you get some more positive feedback from those circles.
And we've talked on this a lot too, is like, but also on the flip side of that is ego gets in the way of, you see someone who, you would acknowledge they're doing great things, but you don't want to point that out because you feel like that's demeaning to yourself or whatever. But it's like the energy effect, right? If I want to be featured on podcast, I should have other people on my podcast. You know what I mean? If I want to do X, like I got to put X out. So I think that's that's something that I have not heard a lot of other people talk about. If you want that in that environment, you got to put that environment out. Hey, good job, great work, acknowledging people.
You see, I think trust is the other one. People that they want people to trust them, but they don't trust anyone else.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, eventually it's, what you put out there comes back. Right. And, I just think that's one of the things that with belief and confidence is it helps you also notice other people's confidence, which I think is a learning experience when you become observant. And, the nonprofit I work with, our CEO, of the Positive Coaching Alliance, he always talks about, in our internal staff meetings, we would always, one year at this retreat, and he was like, the big concept was being a noticer, right? We got to be better at noticing. And that I think leads to some of the positivity, but in the gratitude, when you're wired for gratitude, you start to notice more. And if you're wired for positivity or you're asked to notice positive things by someone else, it starts to wire that brain. And I came back from this retreat. It's kind of a funny story, and tell my wife all about the great things I learned. And one of the things was about being a better noticer, babe. So you need to, at the end of the day, what were the 3 best things of your day? And she kind of looked at me funny, like, what? And it's like, what was the 3 best parts of your day? And just kind of asked her out of the blue and stagnantly kind of spit out 1, 2, 3. And the next day she came home and I was like, what's the best parts of your day? And she's like, boom, boom, boom. And the third day, Wednesday, I was like, what was the 3 best parts of your day? She's like, I had them ready. Boom, boom, boom. And so it also started, our home time together with, 3 positive things from her work. She works at a hospital. There's a lot of stressful, negative things, but put it on a good foot. And then the fourth day.
It's so easy to be negative working in that environment.
Totally. And I was trying to what is it? And the 4th day she asked me back. I was like, oh shit. No, that's not how the game's played, honey. And I was stagnant and I couldn't think of the 3 best things of my day. And it was just kind of a funny paradox that one, in 3 days, she was wired to come home and tell me 3 positive things. Meanwhile, I was only being receptive and not paying attention. Like, what are my 3 positives? And so it was kind of a funny game that I think I talk about with coaches is you can do it in a journal. You can do it with your spouse. You can do it with a teammate. What was the best part of work today? What was the best part of our meeting? What is it? But you start to rewire people to notice positives. And what it does is eliminate some of their capability to notice negatives and bullshit.
Right. And something you mentioned quite a bit is that stems, and I've heard from a lot of other mindset coaches, gratitude stems mostly from gratitude. So, but I think people, when they hear that, they're like, well, there's nothing for me to be grateful. My life is shit right now. Like everything is falling apart. But what's the micro level that you can step into with gratitude and, build up from there?
Yeah, I think I started more of a gratitude practice probably like a little over 2 years ago, where it's just, keeping a journal, and it's either I usually write a couple sentences in the morning, usually at least, if something's busy or I have a presentation in the morning, I don't get to journal it. Sometime before lunch, and anything in the last 24 hours. And for me, that works because there's some days where you sit there with the pen in your hand and you're like, what do I feel grateful for? And then I think sometimes those are the days you have to kick yourself in your ass and be like, well, I've got a home, I've got a wife, I've got food. And I think,
I'm alive.
One of these recordings I listened to on one of my runs, it has a little thing on perspective. It's like this. Someone slept under a park bench last night. Mm-hmm. Someone would trade anything in the world for a free, clean glass of drinking water right now. And I think
even that first glass of water in the morning, that could be, I'm grateful for this cup of coffee that I have.
Yeah, I think
something as small as that.
I'm grateful my eyes opened.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I think just to be alive and to have that day in front of you is a huge opportunity. But sometimes we, think of those things as an obligation instead of opportunity. It's going to shape your mindset that way. And I think gratitude makes us look at opportunities instead of obligations. And today I was, one of the things I was grateful for the opportunity to get on the podcast. That's what I wrote down this morning. It's like, maybe through this, you and I or this podcast helps someone, give someone a new perspective on something that can help them this week or somehow, some way. But having gratitude for an opportunity made me like, man, got me extra fired up to jump on this call, So I think on the micro is just, you've got to train yourself for perspective, because I think it might sound pompous, but we live in America. Like, so it can't all be total crap. There's lots of parts of the world and there's lots of parts of America where there is a lot of crap. And I think to realize where you are. And I think when you're trying to realize where you are, one of the big things I see athletes and other successful people, and I have friends too, that I think there's power in when you journal and record it, but also power in reflection is sometimes just asking me like, look how far you've come in 2 years. And you probably know so many entrepreneurs. You've probably had people on the podcast too that keep their head down. They're grinding. They're elevating what they want in their business and their life.
Yeah. I think that was one of my biggest downfalls for quite a while is, it's you're in your current state and you're like, I haven't gotten anywhere. Like, holy shit, I'm just turning my wheels. But then when you really can deeply reflect and look back, you realize that, even the micro steps like that, it's amazing when you take that time to reflect.
Yeah, I think it's a key piece to just improving. And when you can reflect, it's not always easy.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's not.
Yeah. I think
it's part of being grateful, being grateful, grateful is not easy.
Yeah. It just helps you face the truth. And I think truth is what's going to show you a clearer path of who you are, what you're capable of. But self-reflection, whether it's any mindset thing or whatever, if that's not a piece of it, you just won't move forward. Because you constantly have to be evaluating. And that's one of the things I always tell people, track something you're moving towards. Because when I was kind of battling my depression, I wasn't exercising, I wasn't healthy, I wasn't this fit D1 athlete.
Right. Yeah.
Nor did I feel like one. I didn't feel like this healthy person. And I made the decision. I was like, I'm gonna run a half marathon, and hadn't run in for I don't know how long. And I got on a treadmill and I did 0.8 miles and I got off. And that was day one. But it was the step. And the next day I did 1.2. And the next day I did 1.4 and just built my way up. But, when you track those things and people are like, how'd you get into running a half marathon? I just was like, listen, my first day I decided to do that. I couldn't even finish a mile. I quit before the mile, So it's to look back, it's to see that growth. And I think when you do track gratitude, when you track your goals, track your daily habits, it gives you a little place to peek in and see how far you've come. And most people can find a lot of positive things, a lot of gratitude, a lot of perspective.
Yeah. So you're literally talking about tracking down. I did 0.8 miles today and I ate this and I, had this happen today. Just every day, actually journaling, just tracking, even if it's bullet points, super, Super
Yep.
simple.
Yep. Just connect your, it also, when you start to put things down or enter them in your computer or your phone or however works for you, it connects that other side of the brain. And I think that's where
I think writing it, from what I've heard from most people, like there's a difference in jotting it in your phone and actually physically writing it down.
Yeah. I think there definitely is for the depthness of it. I think for tracking purposes, it's like, hey, just part of it, the tracking is get it tracked so we can reflect on it.
Yeah.
Whatever. And for each person, it's like, you've got to create something that you're going to execute, whatever you're going to track. But yeah, I think the science is totally with handwriting, typing out, those kind of things are definitely going to give you a little bit more in depth. And part of that's just like the neurological pathways to it. And when you have those mechanisms, one of my great mentors, always talks about how great athletes and great people, they see everything twice. They visualize it, the stadium they're going into, whatever it is, they kind of go through those visualizing routines, but planning it and jotting it is part of that entry to visualization. And if you've seen yourself plan and go to the gym, you've seen yourself sit down at your desk and make those 100 calls, or sit down and write the 5 blogs you need to do, you're way more likely to execute it because you've already lit up those neurons that I'm going to go and do this. And on the flip side, our brain's very powerful with athletes is it works the physical way too. That you've seen like Sports Science, ESPN, right? Those kind of things. And they'll wire up an athlete and have them shoot free throws. And they, get their little charts, right? And then they sit that person down and they have them just sit and visualize shooting free throws. The exact same neural pathways go up in the exact same pattern, just the intensity is less. But their muscles are actually being wired with just visualizing doing the activity. That's like a big thing in rehab these days is doing visualization, because you're working your muscle literally by visualizing yourself doing
brain,
activity on a very small level, not as much as actually doing activity, but you're firing the neurons that lead to doing that muscle behavior.
Our brains are so powerful that they create your physical environment in a way that like you can't comprehend. It's so weird. And I know it's so corny to some people, but like, dude, I can't tell you the amount of like looking back from when I was 14 and 15 years old and the things that have come into fruition, even in the last couple of years, it's like, holy shit, I was thinking about this stuff when I was like young and it's here. And I like just taking that moment to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But I took action. It's about taking the action towards it. Otherwise, you can envision all the things in the world. I think you said you like Ed Milet, or you follow Ed Milet, right?
I know of him, yeah, a little bit, yeah. I think we talked about Lewis and Lewis. Maybe
we talked about Lewis Howes. How you knew Lewis back in the day.
Yeah.
Let's get him to come out to Colorado. We'll do a 3-way podcast together. Mindset.
Dude, it's funny. The last time I saw him, his first book tour, he was out here and hit me up, and when saw him at the Barnes and Nobles over on Colorado Avenue. But he's always like, reaching peaks and he's got his thing. But one of the things he's never done is hike a 14er. So it was kind of funny. Me and one of my buddies was like, he was the buddy that went to this Cubs game with Lewis and I years ago. And, I was like, that's how we got to get him to come hike a 14er, man. Like he wants to push his limits. He wants to get better. And then you also get, a couple hours on the mountain to talk.
There you go,
man. Escaping the mountain.
You should just is your buddy still connected up with Lewis?
He was connected to him through me.
You just lost contact because you guys kind of were living in the same city, and I think
Lewis was well, I lived in Chicago at the time, and this was when he was like doing LinkedIn stuff, and I was like, hey, next time you're in town, love to grab coffee. And he was like, let's do a baseball game. And I was like, cool. I worked for the Sox. They were out of town. I got a friend to get us Cubs tickets and, poked his brain about growing my sports business career. And we started a networking group off that day. Like he gave us the idea, we're like, let's start a sports business networking group. And we started that in Chicago, and that grew to be over 500 people in the area of I think I touched on you with like how big I was into networking then. I was like, let's start a networking group. So, and then he had a website called sportsnetworker.com that I wrote articles for.
That's awesome.
Which
It's
was
so crazy how like, you know, in the connected world we're in, we're literally one or two connections from everybody in the entire universe at this point.
It's funny too, is like how people are like, how do you get into doing that? And I was like, still today, I joke with kids, like, I had an accent. I didn't want to talk in class. I wasn't a good writer. And now I write blogs and I speak to people.
Yeah.
Like all these things.
Yeah. Dude, you need to get on David's audiobook.
book?
Cool. Your guys' story is actually really similar.
So it's like now I do these things I was terrible at. And when I was working in sports, one of the things I wasn't doing, was writing. I was doing a lot of sales calls, a lot of meetings, but I wasn't ever writing. And I definitely wasn't into journal and gratitude and stuff at this point in my life. I found this website and I was like, hey, I work for the White Sox. Can I contribute content? And that's how I met Lewis. And it was looking for a space to share some of my experiences in sports business and help others, and really to develop writing skill in a place that I wasn't. So it's kind of just trying to find a place to develop skill, which led to that ironic connection. Yeah.
Well, that's such a cool point. Like, I can't tell you all the like happenstance connections I've made just by putting, like, I do a lot of videos, right? I can't, challenging for me to get to sit my ass down and like write a blog post, but I'm good in front of camera. So that's my form of communicating. Yeah. And I can't tell you the amazing connections that have fallen into my life just from purely putting, energy out there. That's all it is. And it's just a form of energy. Yeah.
Like I started doing interviews just from my own learning process with athletes and authors. And that's how I did one with John Gordon. And then I was like, I'm going to learn how to edit video a bit. So I could put out little teasers to these interviews with some great people that I was doing. And that's how I ended up. John Gordon, like some guy tweeted at me, he's like, hey, did you make this video? And I was like, I thought I was in trouble. I was like, yeah, I just grabbed that footage from YouTube, from John's channel. And then the guy's like, oh, okay. And I was like, am I in trouble? Like, are they mad? Like, John was everything was cool to share this interview. And then they messaged me back and he's like, no, John wants to know if you'll make videos for him. And I was like, sure.
Nice.
And so, that's when I've told kids, was like, I had zero ability, zero skill in editing video. And a couple months later, New York Times best-selling author was asking me to help him out. And it was just, one of those, another happenstance. Like, how do you
commit first, follow up with the rest after?
I like it. It's like, I'm going to learn video, and learning video led to another little thing.
So let me ask you this real quick, and then let's start winding this thing down. I think there's a lot of folks out there who, are kind of like you, and they want to share their mindset. They want to impact people. And this is something I've, mentor mine, JV Crumb's Conscious Millionaires, like, we can build businesses around that and monetize that. But I think that's where people struggle, because you have to be able to help yourself to be able to help other people. You have to be able to like have income. We live on an economic planet, whether you agree with it or not. And so my question for you is, how could someone who's listening to this build a similar business to you? How can they monetize in their, niche?
Yeah. I think it's first looking at what their unique experiences are. And pairing that unique experience, especially if it's on mindset or sharing your story or speaking or influencing others for positive development. You have to get better at, one, telling your story and figuring out how you're going to impact people. Some of the best advice I got, especially when I was going out on my own to do more speaking, was, and I think this is the hard part that people don't want to hear, is that there is economics, right? And one of the best pieces of advice I got was, one, if you're going to go embark on that, hopefully you have enough skill set where someone will pay you now. And I had that. I could get some gigs. People would pay me to come and speak and work with teams. And the second part he told me was, but you're also going to have to be willing to go do it for free. And I did a lot of those in my first few months, and I still do them here and there. It's repetition for me. its reach and impact. There's people in there that I can connect with, even if maybe I do a free talk or a free workshop. Sometimes there's other opportunities within those relationships for me. But for me, it was like, hey, do you have a good enough skill set where people will pay you and be willing to do it for free and then go work? And I think if you can do both of those, I think especially in the speaking and coaching is, I'm young too. So, I mean, my experiences are unique and they have to pair well with the audience or athletes I'm going to go serve. And so from a student athlete perspective, my experiences from college and high school and working at the professional level and seeing professional athletes every day combined for unique experiences. Then I was able to really get a lot of secondary education through the nonprofit that was based out of Stanford on, mindset and some of these kind of things. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but you have to just decide that's what you're going to do.
Yeah. And I guess like on a more technical side, at some point you have to ask to get paid for what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think early on I found too that, I've had a gig or two that was like, should ask for more. They just said yes right away.
Yeah. There's always.
I should have included a little more.
If I had a penny for every time I've been in that moment, in a sales call, it's like, oh, should I have sold it at that price? I could have gotten more.
Yeah. So I think there's always an opportunity to, I have people that do what I want to do, and a lot of people sometimes they don't want to make the sacrifices.
Right. Sacrifices as in like, put the energy in for free also and put in the work.
Yeah.
To, like get paid. And the reason I asked that too is it's so timely. Tyler, like I got asked probably 3 times this last week, hey Connor, I'm interested in this genre. Like I even had someone who's like, I'm passionate about lingerie. This is a girl, by the way, not a dude. Okay. I'm passionate about lingerie. How do I monetize a blog around lingerie? I'm like, start blogging. You're not going to monetize. Yeah, start doing it, and you're gonna. And I've had 3 or 4 conversations like that. So what you're saying is, find out your message, clarify the impact you want to make. Start actually doing what you want to get paid for free, and you're not the only person who's successfully doing what they're doing now and started that way. Start doing what you're doing for free, and rinse and repeat, stay consistent with it.
Yeah. I think one of the things, especially for the times we live in, don't mistake followers for a following. I think sometimes like I need followers. And it's like, I get a lot of these people on Instagram, let me help you build your following. And I'm like full of people that really aren't connected to me or my message. They're not quality people that really want to be in my circle or be in my feedback, but don't mistake, that you can have a lot of a following without followers. And I think too many times we get focused on like those social followers where you really need to in person develop a following.
It's more of a dopamine thing than an actual tangible thing. Like
I've
got so many likes, or I've got so many followers, but it's completely vapid if it's not creating the impact.
Right. I think when you focus on the relationship and the follower, the individual, that's when you're going to be more successful, because it has to be, people are smart. People can sense bullshit. People can tell if you're genuine or you're not genuine. And especially if you're trying to help people get better, they can sniff that out really quick. So I think, being genuine, it has to align with what you're doing too. So people tell me that when I speak, they're like, we can really feel your passion. I'm like, good. I hope they heard some of the message too. But, I tell people like, if they can feel your passion, then I think they're going to begin to hear your message. And that was one of the reasons I think I got connected with you, was when I saw Connor, there's passion, there's fire, there's mindset, there's drive. And those are the people you want to align yourself with and be able to connect and serve.
Absolutely, brother. You are the real of them out there. I'm super grateful for you. Wrap this thing up. How can people find you, get in contact with you?
Yeah.
Connected, become a follower.
If you want to
#positivity.
#positivity. I know Connor's probably he's giving me grief, but my Twitter is Elevate Educate with the 8s in there. So it's ELEVATE the number 8, EDUC and the number 8. And then my Instagram is similar. It's just Elevate Educate Rejuvenate. And what that really is about is elevating your attitude, educating yourself how to be better, and then rejuvenating your lifestyle or whatever it is to put those things into play so you can see development and growth. So if you need anything else, you can find my email too. Just look up Elevate Educate Rejuvenate, and I'll be the only one with that long of a handle.
Yeah. Well, I was just giving Tyler a hard time the other day. I'm like, dude, it's so long. You know, I'm a marketer, so I'm always looking at like, you know, things like that. I'm like, short, tighten it up, man. But that's okay. We'll tag you when we start getting your stuff out there, and hopefully people will find you that way. We'll get you in the bio and everything like that. But yeah, man, I'm so grateful for your time, and really appreciate you doing this. Any final, you know, notes, comments, anything else you'd like to share out before we close this thing down?
Yeah, no, just grateful for the opportunity to connect and share with you. And yeah, we touched on a lot of things, but if there's anything that you have questions on, connect, find me. Other than that, if you're listening to this, thanks for listening, and have a great positive day. And remember, there's always a choice. You can be positive or negative, and that positive one's going to lead you to the better day. So
it's like bathing. Got to stay consistent with it. You're going to be stinky, which is why we'll podcast again, man. We'll probably have like hours and hours of other things that we can talk about. So yeah, guys, really appreciate you. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review before you leave today, and we'll see you on the other side.